Are you ready for the video that you should have gotten last week but didn't because of audio issues? Well, here it is. You finally, wait a minute. Is this thing on? It's on. So get ready for some blueberry cream cheese crumb bars. They're coming your way. Hello and welcome to my kitchen. My name is Roy. I'm a home cook and amateur baker who is here to show some of the low bite, low point recipes that I've used to lose at this stage 127 pounds and give you some ideas for variety that you can add into your menu so that you're not feeling like you're stuck in a rut with the same dishes over and over again. Now, if you're subscribed here, thank you and welcome back. And if you're not, please consider subscribing down below. Now, today's recipe is one that was previously made, and if you follow me on Instagram or in my Facebook group, which I will link down below, you know that there was a little glitch filming this the first time because I had no audio. So this time around, I've double checked everything and I think we're good. So what we're making today is blueberry cream cheese crumb bars. Delicious dessert. You get 12 servings, at least I do 12 servings, and each of those servings is going to be 4 bites. You could cut this into 16 to make 3-bite desserts. You could cut it into 20 and they would be 2 bites each. But I usually cut it into 12s because I like a nice hefty dessert and the points aren't that bad. So the things that we're going to be using are some of my homemade cream cheese, and I will link the video for this below. Now you need 12 ounces. To get 12 ounces of this cream cheese, you probably need about 16 ounces of the yogurt because a lot of the liquid that drains off will affect the amount. So you can't do an even amount and expect it to be the same. What I usually do is I do more than that just to make sure I have enough, and I have some left over for other things like my crackers or bagels or whatever I choose to use cream cheese in. You're also going to need some cooking spray. Because we're baking, I use the one with the flour added, still 0 points. You're going to need a sugar-free cake mix. I'm using the classic yellow cake for this one. You need a 1/2 cup of pureed pumpkin, not pumpkin pie spice, because that's got all sorts of things added to it that will add points. So you just want plain pumpkin puree. I have here 2/3 of a cup of sugar alternative. I use Swerve. Anything that's a 1-to-1 exchange for sugar. If it's not a 1-to-1, you'd probably have to cut it in half because I think the other ones tend to be stronger in sweetness. Now I have 2 eggs, and for the recipe it says 2 eggs divided. That doesn't mean to separate the whites and the yolks. That would be separated. So what it means when it says divided is that one will go into the cake part, the crust, and the other one will go into the cream cheese mixture. So it's, when it says divided, just know it means you're going to separate the eggs from each other, not yolks from whites. You're also going to need a tablespoon of lemon zest, which is the outside of this, and you're going to need 3 tablespoons of the juice. Now, 1 medium lemon should give you everything you need, so I don't measure it out, but you can if you want to. That's totally up to you. And then we're going to have 2.5 cups of blueberries, which I've rinsed and drained here. Now you're going to put that all into a 9x13 pan, and we're going to start by spraying this. I'm going to go over the sink because I don't like it getting everywhere. And in the sink, I can at least wash it out. Okay, so our 13 by 9 pan has been sprayed. What I'm going to do, and you don't have to do this, but for me it makes it easier to get it out. You could cut it right in the pan. I try not to do that usually. I'm going to use a piece of parchment to make a sling so that we can lift it out more easily. Now this is just a smidge too wide for the pan, so I'm just going to fold over the edges a little bit. Okay, and if you notice, I'm a little shaky today. For those of you who are new here, I suffer from neuropathy and myopathy, meaning my muscles and nerves don't always work correctly. So some days are a little worse than others, and today I've been having a few more difficulties than I have previously. Okay, so we're going to take this sling, and all we're going to do is just lay it in here, and this is just going to make it easier to pull out. And you don't have to do parchment. You could use some foil if you'd want. Just make sure it's like the heavy duty foil so that when you pull it out, it doesn't tear. So there's our pan all set. I'm going to set that to the side. So now to make the crust, what we're going to start off with is the ½ cup of pumpkin. And we're going to add 1 of the 2 eggs to this and just whisk it up. Now I don't crack my eggs on the side of the bowl just because sometimes I think the shell can break off into the bowl, and it's just cracking it on the counter makes that less likely to happen. Okay, so we're just going to whisk this up. You don't have to go crazy, you just want the 2 to be pretty well combined before you add in the cake mix. This crust is going to be very sticky, so don't worry when you look at it and see how it may not be looking like it's coming together at first, because it will get there. I should have probably opened this before starting to film, but why make things easy on myself? I'm going to cut this open because I don't trust my hands not to spray it all over the place today. I'm just going to use a silicone spatula, or you can use a wooden spoon or whatever you want, and just mix that together. Now it's going to be very crumbly at first and look like it's not going to come together into anything cohesive. But once you keep going, it will come together. It'll look kind of like little pebbles, little chunks of sand, pea-sized, they say. You just don't want to see any of the cake mix left. You want it to be more of an even orangey color from the pumpkin. It doesn't have to be precise where it's one homogeneous mixture, because once you press it into the pan, you will see that it sticks together, and it will be sticking to your hands too. All right, so this part's ready. Let me get the pan back. Okay, so you're going to take about 2/3 of the crust mixture, and you're going to be putting that into the pan. The other third is going to be a streusel kind of topping for the crumb bars. That's where it gets its name. Now, you want to have some water standing by, because this is going to be very sticky as you try to press it in. And I found even using the silicone spatula doesn't keep it from sticking. But if you have some wet hands, that will definitely do the trick. So I keep the bowl there just so I don't have to keep running back and forth to the sink. See, and it's still a very sticky dough even though I've wet my hands. But the more you work with it and the smoother it gets, the easier it will be. Might not seem like it. I think I need a little bit more. I don't think I made it to quite 2/3 of the dough. Now don't worry about making the dough wet with how much water you might need to make this work, because it'll all bake off in the end. And sometimes the sling can make it a little trickier. Just want to smooth that out. To spread it. And like I said, this will be a messy process, but it will be worth it in the long run. Okay, finally have that all spread out across the pan. I'm going to wash my hands and I'll be right back. Okay, so I'm going to set this aside and then we're going to start on the cream cheese mixture. Okay, for the cream cheese filling, just going to take some of the 0.0 bite cream cheese that we made in my first video, and if you haven't seen that, go check that out. Comes in handy for anything you need sour cream for. And I'm just using the same rubber spatula that I used to mix up the batter, because it really doesn't matter. I don't need a clean one for this. So I'm going to stick that in the bowl and add in the sugar replacement. And then we're just going to whisk that together. Just to get that sugar replacement distributed a bit more throughout a bit through the cream cheese. You can also use a mixer, which I probably should have done. Okay, I have switched to my electric mixer, which will be much faster and won't stick as much as the whisk was doing, if both of these will stay in. Okay, then we're going to add in the egg. And we're going to zest and juice the lemon right in there. Now, if you don't have a microplane, you should get one. It's very helpful. And instead of what I've seen a lot of people do is they turn it this way and scrape it right into the bowl. I found that when I'm doing that way, I tend to get little flecks of lemon zest all over the place that are not in the bowl. So I prefer to turn it upside down and just run it back and forth to get all the zest off. Now you don't want to go down to the white, what they call the pith, because that can be very bitter and you won't get that nice hint of lemon. You'll get a little bitterness that is not all that pleasant. So you just want the yellow part. Okay, so that's about a tablespoon. Just gonna tap that in there. And then we're going to juice it. And because I'm using a juicer and not just squeezing it in there, I don't have to worry about seeds possibly getting in there. But I am gonna roll it a little bit, press the lemon and roll it, because that tends to get some of the juice out of the pulp. Now, the one thing you do have to worry about is some of the squirting out from the sides, but it seems to have done pretty well on the first half anyway. Now you could, if you wanted, if you didn't have a juicer, you can squeeze it right into your hand and let your fingers be slightly apart so that it catches any of the seeds that might be trying to get into your mixture. But I prefer the juicer just because you do tend to get more juice from it that way. Okay. Let me get rid of these things and I'll be right back. All right, so we're going to mix this all together, the lemon with the egg and the cream cheese and sugar, mix that all together. And now we're going to put this cream cheese onto our bottom crust. Okay, so we're just going to plop this right on top of the crust here. And then we're going to spread it out into as even of a layer as possible. And then just spread that around. Now you can also shake the pan a little bit if it doesn't seem to be wanting to go into like the corners especially, just to spread it out a little more evenly. And one problem with having progressive glasses is it sometimes makes things look a little wavery. So sometimes I think it's too heavy on one side when it's actually not. It's just my glasses. So let me remove those for the moment so I can get a better feel, a little better view of what's going on here. Okay, so that looks good. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take our blueberries and just scatter those all over. And again, don't let any escape. Again, it's going to be moved around a little bit with your hands, so don't worry about it being too even, because you can move it. You want to press the berries into the cream cheese just slightly. You don't want to press too hard. Okay, my glasses are back, and so is the rest of this crust. Now, this is going to be, like you saw before, a bit wet. Maybe not as wet as when you're trying to press it down into the pan, but it's still wet. But what you want to do is break it into small bits and scatter it all over the berries. You don't want to cover the berries completely. Crumb bars tend to have some of the fruit poking out, some of the cream cheese poking out. So you don't want to worry about getting it evenly coated like you did on the bottom. But you do want to get it all over the blueberry and cream cheese mixture. And again, it will stick to your fingers. So you may periodically have to wet your hands to keep that from happening. This is not the least messy food that you can make, but it is worth all the effort. The taste is incredible. Nice and creamy, a little cakey. It's definitely worth all the effort. Now, one thing I wanted to mention was that you don't have to do it this way. You don't have to use blueberries, you don't have to use your yellow cake mix. You could do a chocolate cake mix and use strawberries. You could use orange zest or lime zest in place of the lemon. I think if you had maybe cherries and used lime zest and lime juice in the yellow cake mix, that might be a good combination. So you can play around with it. If you find other sugar-free cake mixes and you have a fruit that goes well with it, you could do peaches, chopped up little bits of peaches. You know, you can change it up. So you don't have to feel like you're stuck with just blueberries. And that's what I try to do with most of my recipes, is make them adaptable so you can change them up. You can be more adventurous with them. Chocolate with cherries would also obviously be very good. So just play around with it, have some fun, try different things out. Some may work, some may not. Like trying to get this off your fingers. Doesn't always seem to want to work. But we are almost at the end there. Now, this may not be the recipe you want to make right after you've had a manicure, because you're going to get a little messy. But as I said before, it's definitely worth it. Okay, now that all the topping is on there, you just want to damp your hands a little bit and press that down into the berries. Just so that it doesn't stick, but you don't want to go crazy pressing it in. You just want to gently, like you did with the berries, just gently tap that down to form the top layer. Okay, now this is going to go into a 350-degree oven for 45 to 50 minutes. I usually go on the higher end to 50 just to make sure everything's set. And you'll notice I have a door that opens to the side on my oven, because when we did our remodel over a year ago, just before quarantine, we had decided to put this side door on, because with my issues, pulling the door out this way and then having to reach over would have put a strain on my arms and I might have dropped things. So this is just far easier for me to use in the long run. So we will give that 45 minutes. And I'll be back. Okay, it's been just about 50 minutes. The timer is about to run down, but I'm going to take a toothpick and just check it and be safe while I'm doing it. And fog up my glasses. So you just want to check, make sure that the toothpick comes out clean, and it does. So I'm going to turn off the timer before that goes off. Then turn off the oven. And take out the crumb bars. So there you have a well-baked crumb bar right there. So now we just have to let this cool, probably at least a half an hour, and then we will take it out and cut it into squares, and I'll show you what happens when we get there. Okay, so the bars have been cooling for about half an hour and still slightly warm, but it's not going to be that big of a deal, I don't believe, especially using the sling. Now, like I said, if you weren't using the sling, you could just cut this right in the pan, but I have a tendency of cutting too deep and scoring the pans, so I try not to, but it's your cookware, you do as you want. So I'm just going to lift this up onto the cutting board and get this out of my way. Now, I have a ruler because even before my neuropathy and myopathy made my hands unsteady, I was never great at serving perfectly sized portions. And even with the ruler and my shaky hands, I still am not, but this will help me to get a little better than I would normally. So this is a almost 12-inch, so I'm going to go with the 6 and cut it in half first. I think it's still a little too warm. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let this cool down a little bit more, because see, it's starting to fall apart a little bit. I think it's still too warm. So I'm going to let it cool down more now that it's out of the pan, and then I will be back to cut it. All right, so it was still a little warm. So what I ended up doing was putting it in the freezer for about 10-15 minutes to try to firm it up a little bit so it wouldn't be, hopefully, falling apart this time. Still seems a little soft, but yeah, I don't think I'm doing too bad eyeing it rather than using the ruler. Let's see how I do in this direction. Take off these progressives, that might help. So like I said, I'm going to cut this into 12. If you wanted to, you could do 16, you could do 20, and that would obviously lower the points or the bites. 16 would be 3 bites, and 20 would be 2 bites each. So there you have your blueberry cream cheese crumb bar. Looks tasty. I can still feel it a little warm. I'm going to just transfer these to the wire rack to let them cool completely. You can have these just as they are, they're very good. Or you can put on a little fat-free whip topping if you wanted to make them a little more indulgent. But this is a nice hefty little portion for 4 bites and very satisfying. I don't think you will be disappointed in the taste or the use of the points or the bites. And there you have it. Blueberry cream cheese crumb bars. Once they're cooled down, you can store them airtight. I usually put them in a refrigerator because of the cream cheese, and that also helps to keep them nice and firm. If you like this recipe, or any of the recipes that I've shared, please give the videos a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell for the next time I upload a video. I'm planning on doing some shorter snack or even savory related videos in the future. I've had a few people say that that's something they'd be interested in, so that is what I'm planning, but I'm not sure what day I will upload those on. But just hit that notification bell so when I do upload them, you are notified. Or if you know anyone who's looking for recipes for WW or iTrack Bites, or any sort of weight loss journey, feel free to share this video with them and let them know what's available, like these blueberry cream cheese crumb bars. Until next time, enjoy.